All right, we're back on a One True podcast. Alongside me, as normal, is my friend John Werner. Johnny, how are we doing this?
Brice, you doing all right?
Yeah, John went and saw the Rolling Stones. Stephen, how about that?
Hey, that's great, John. Yeah, that's my dad's favorite band. I don't mean that as like an old insult. I also like the Rolling Stones, but that's a good show to go see.
Well, yeah, if you want to make an old reference, the last time I saw them was 40 years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's a long time between Rolling Stones concerts. So with us this week is Stephen Simcox. Stephen was at ESPN Central Texas for about 5 years. Now doing the Locked On Horns podcast, covering all things TCU. And yeah, Stephen, appreciate you hopping on with us.
Thanks for inviting me. This is great. I have read the Waco trip for a long time, read both of your work for a while. So excited to talk some Baylor TCU, and we got some pretty big news this week. So maybe more interesting conversation than normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great segue because obviously, guys, for the first time in 20 plus years, Gary Patterson won't be on the sideline when TCU takes the field this week against those Baylor Bears. Even while knowing and understanding that the Frogs have been kind of trending in the wrong direction for the past couple of seasons, I personally was genuinely surprised at this news. I mean, I was shocked, especially the timing of it being in season. What did you guys think? Stephen, I'll start with you. You obviously follow this pretty closely.
Yeah, I was pretty floored. I mean, I was starting to come around to the idea that at the end of the year, they might be able to approach him and say, hey, could we gracefully exit here, and we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you're appreciated, but we want to move on. Or that Gary might even come to the realization, this is not working. I either need to get out or go somewhere else. But the fact that it happened mid-season is really shocking. And I mean, I think the thing that accelerated this process probably was that Texas Tech fired Matt Wells a few weeks ago. And they're obviously, in a coaching search right now. Jeremiah Donati said yesterday in a press conference they were ready to open up a search, but they didn't want to do it behind his back. So that's why they had the conversation. And I mean, it doesn't shock me. Like you guys know Coach Patterson. It does not shock me in the least that they told him, hey, we really want you to leave at the end of the season, but we want you to finish the year out. And that he told them basically, no, thank you. Cut me my check. I'm out of here. That's just who he is. That's how he's always been. He's always had that chip on his shoulder, but it's disappointing. I mean, I wanted to see him get his roses at the Kansas game on senior day. I wanted to see TCU fans give him a standing ovation on his way out. He's done so much for the program, obviously, but now that's not going to happen. So I think this will be fascinating. Like Jerry Kill has been a head coach before. He's not in over his head. But, I mean, you guys have seen this before at Baylor. Like, when you have a coaching staff that knows they're done at the end of the year, like, it's hard to fully engage going on in the present. And I assume it'll be tough for the players, too. So, it'll be interesting to see how they finish out these last couple games.
Yeah, no doubt. John, were you surprised?
Yeah, like you said, I was surprised by the timing of it. It sounded like it's been coming, at least for a few weeks, because TCU's been struggling in the last few years. They haven't been as good as they had been previously under Patterson. I'm just kind of wondering, will they put a tarp or some kind of covering over his statue the rest of the season? I don't know. How's that going to go?
It is unusual that a guy with a statue outside the building is getting his pink slip.
Yeah, no, it's so strange. And the statue thing for the university has become kind of a running bit now because of the struggles the last few years. Apparently that was like a donor who really wanted to see that go up before that donor passed away, which is understandable, but that's part of the deal. Like, if you're going to have that up there, and obviously if you're going to create those expectations as they did, then you have to deal with it. I'm not sure, John, maybe they'll have to put like an asterisk in the actual engraving of, hey, this guy did a great job. We still love him. But it will be strange to have somebody else, even in an interim role, coaching while that's sitting outside of Amon G. Carter.
Yeah, to me, it's very reminiscent of earlier this year, Baylor and Kim Mulkey, a marriage that, while rocky at times in terms of just her personality, and as Stephen said with Gary, I mean, someone who I think kind of has a chip on their shoulder, but that was a marriage I think a lot of Baylor fans figured might last forever. I wouldn't be surprised. It might take a while, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kim had a statue someday outside of the Farrell Center or wherever they play in the future. But to me, it also conjures up images of Mac Brown at Texas. And I tweeted after it happened, be careful what you wish for, TCU. I mean, we saw what happened with Texas and Mac Brown, and that they went through kind of a lull after that. And, I mean, I realized they were, starting to go through a lull with Mac, but it's it's kind of a scary thing. Sometimes the one is better than the one you might get. So we'll circle back to that. Let's talk about the game a little bit.
Hey, Brice, I'm expecting to see Gary's name in the transfer portal any time now.
Nice. Good job, John. So at last check, the Bears are a 6.5 point favorite. That was what I saw most recently. I don't know. Maybe it's changed. It changes a lot. I tend to think this line could be a little bit higher. You got two teams going in different directions. Obviously, now we've got the coaching change on top of all of that. As Stephen said, Jerry Kill's not in over his head. He knows how to be a head coach, but it's a lot for the Frogs, I think, to deal with, players, to handle. So it is a rivalry game. We know, the old cliche with that, but does this set up as the proverbial trap game for Baylor, or you feel like the Bears roll pretty easily in this one?
I like the Bears in this. They're playing so well. Now, of course, the last 3 wins have been at home. Their last road game, they lost to Oklahoma State. And, we'll see how they react on the road, but man, they sure have been building a lot of momentum. And, I'm kind of thinking with Patterson gone, I think, obviously that factor is gone. I think he really motivated those guys to play against Baylor. And, we'll see if they're still as motivated playing under Coach Kill, especially after what happened to Gary.
Yeah, I think the thing that has given TCU an advantage the last few years, even though coming into these games, usually they've had around the same record or Baylor or have not been the favorite, is just that Baylor really hasn't had a coherent offensive philosophy in a while. But that's changed with Coach Grimes. They want to run the football. They've turned around this offensive line pretty remarkably in a year's time. So I feel like that's a big advantage because TCU's run defense is not great. They've struggled a lot of the year. They do have some playmakers on offense, with Zach Evans and Quentin Johnson. Zach's been dealing with, I'm not sure what his availability is as we record this on Wednesday. I think the only hope for TCU is that they can kind of run the ball and shorten the game. And yeah, maybe there is some trap game, features here. I think Coach Aranda seems so even keel that he doesn't strike me as somebody who's looking ahead to OU in a few weeks, but maybe the players are. But outside of, I think Baylor wins fairly comfortably if I'm making a prediction. Outside of, kind of a win-one for the Gipper situation for the Frogs, I don't really see them pulling out too many surprises. It's still pretty much the same coaching staff minus Gary Patterson. And they've struggled as of late. I mean, they really struggled against K-State, didn't put up a great performance. Besides that fight against Oklahoma, where they kind of kept it within 2 touchdowns for most of the game, and a win against Texas Tech, it's been really tough sledding for them in Big 12 play so far.
Yeah. I think that's astute analysis by both of you. I will also throw this little nugget in there. Baylor hasn't been beaten itself. One penalty the last 2 games is rather incredible, especially for those of us who covered the Art Briles era when there was quite a bit of laundry all over the field. I don't think Briles really cared about flags that much. So,
No.
it's an incredible stat. I mean, no penalties against BYU and 1 this past week against Texas for Baylor. That's just kind of unheard of.
Yeah, and as we've both seen earlier in the year, the Bears committed a lot of penalties. There's a lot of sloppy play, but man, they've really cleaned that up.
Yeah. Well, so Baylor opens at number 12 in the college football playoff rankings, the first ones of the season. John, I don't think we would have predicted that coming into the year. I mean, I thought the Bears could be decent, but sitting here at 7-1, especially coming off a 2-7 record in Dave Aranda's first year. That said, we know how these CFP things go. Is there any path for Baylor, a 1-loss Baylor team? So I'm saying they got to win out. Any path for them to get to that CFP Final Four?
I would say there would have to be a lot of upsets ahead of them, teams ahead of them. And gosh, you might have to beat Oklahoma twice. That's going to be really hard. But yeah, you're right. They'd have to win out, and they'd have to have a bunch of teams lose ahead of them. I think the BYU win definitely helped as far as a really good non-conference win. But yeah, I would say it's a long shot. I don't really see it happening.
Stephen?
It's an uphill battle. I mean, if you're on the table, you're most likely beating Oklahoma twice, which would be impressive. And then you're probably in the mix. But yeah, as John laid out there, there's a lot of upsets. And I do feel like the biggest hurdle for everybody outside of the SEC is if we get an Alabama-Georgia SEC title game and Bama wins either because they're just better that day or because Georgia doesn't have a huge incentive to, win an SEC title and show a lot in that game. Then half the field's basically taken up. And, we'll probably have a Big Ten team between Michigan State and Ohio State. Oregon appears to be in the driver's seat right now. And Cincinnati is still a factor, even though it seems like the committee's already told them, hey, thanks for playing and good luck in whatever New Year's Six bowl game you end up in, even if you go undefeated. But I don't really see a realistic path for Baylor. But hey, if you end up winning all your games from here on out, then you'll have a heck of a case with a good non-conference schedule and only losing 1 game on the road to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, back when Baylor was number 5 one year in the CFP rankings, actually the very first year of the college football playoff, I don't think they could have gotten in unless they had been undefeated. And I think it's kind of this similar boat. I think they needed to win that game in Stillwater. Let's face it, it's hard to go undefeated. The only team that can win or can lose a game and not really have it affect their ranking at all is Alabama. I mean, I'm just putting that out there.
Right.
I saw a pretty good tweet from Nicole Auerbach, who covers college football on a national level, and she said, so what would Alabama's ranking have been had they beaten Texas A&M? The same?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like they just, Alabama's Alabama. Obviously, they have won a few games, so some of that reputation is well earned. Let's go back to that TCU coaching search a bit. So who do you guys feel like are the top candidates for the Frogs? There have been a lot of names tossed about. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, Texas Tech is also in the market for a head coach. Are TCU and Tech kind of targeting the same people?
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I feel like the front runner right now and I wouldn't have guessed this before they let GP go, but Sonny-Dykes at SMU has obviously done a really nice job turning that around. Yesterday, Jeremiah Donati, the athletic director, said they wanted a current head coach. They wanted an offensive-minded guy. So he fits that description. And, of course, his dad, Spike, was a longtime coach at Texas Tech, so there's some family ties there. I don't know how interested he'll be in that job as well. But he's a name that's come up a lot. Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina is a fun name. He's a good coach. I don't really know what his ties are to the area, obviously. And then Jeff Traylor is a guy that just signed the extension at UTSA and was a longtime high school coach. I'm getting the sense he's probably staying in San Antonio for the time being, but I think that's a name to know. And then Billy Napier is the other name that I've seen thrown out at Louisiana, but he seems pretty content where he's at. I think he's holding out for an SEC job. So Sonny-Dykes to me is the name to watch right now as we're recording this in early November.
Johnny?
Yeah, it's funny. Billy Napier prominently before Dave Aranda was hired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's probably one of them. It sounds like right now it's kind of the Sonny-Dykes sweepstake between maybe TCU and Tech. And it seems like he's kind of the hottest name out there. Obviously, he had a great year this season with SMU. Yeah, I don't know beyond that, who TCU would, maybe be their second candidate.
Yeah, I've read some of the stuff that's been out there, and I agree with Stephen that Traylor seems like he might stay at San Antonio just because they did give him a pretty good extension and control maybe to keep his assistants all together and that kind of thing, which, I mean, that's a lot of security for a coach. That said, back to Dykes for a second. I feel like had SMU been one of the 4 teams that the Big 12 decided to pull in, that he might be more prone to staying in Dallas on the hilltop, and coach the Mustangs, because SMU would then be a Power 5, school. But SMU was not one of those teams. So I feel like, if I'm just guessing, he'll take one of these 2 jobs, either TCU or Tech, probably whichever one cuts him a fatter check. And, the fact that he does have that tie-in, with his dad having coached at Tech seems like a natural fit, but at the same time, sometimes people don't want to go, follow that sort of legacy. And maybe he wants to kind of create his own at TCU, and you would still be in the Metroplex and all that. So, Stephen, I do want to get your take on one other little thing. So I was reading a story from Sam Kahn in The Athletic this week, and, going over the TCU change and into some of the candidates and stuff. And he mentioned this, and I found this extremely interesting, and I don't necessarily agree with this statement, but I'll get your take on it. He said that he thought because of some of the big money donors and the fact that TCU is firmly implanted there in the Metroplex, that TCU may be the most attractive coaching job in the new Big 12. So minus OU, minus Texas. What do you think?
I don't think it's that far off. I mean, I feel like you're probably juggling between TCU and Baylor. They're very similar schools. Baylor's obviously shown a huge commitment of athletics, and I would say I might give the edge to BU right now just because working for Mack Rhodes seems like a pretty good thing if you're good at your job. And we don't know a whole lot about Jeremiah Donati. He's very new to this gig, and he really hasn't made but they're both in good areas to recruit. TCU is in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which I think that's probably attractive to a coach, and you obviously have talent right there. So that's an advantage to a certain extent. And is it better than Texas Tech out on the west part of the state? I think so. Iowa State, Matt Campbell's done a great job, but there's limitations there. I think those 2, right there on 35 are probably the two best jobs in the new look conference from a football perspective for sure.
I don't think you can dismiss Oklahoma State in that conversation. I mean, obviously the
Sure.
Cowboys are a big state school with a pretty good fan base, and they pay Mike Gundy pretty well up there. And honestly, if you're talking about Oklahoma State versus Baylor and TCU, they probably have had more sustained success. They've done a pretty good job. I think only missed a bowl game maybe once in Gundy's tenure. I think that was his first year. So, they're another one I would probably put in that mix. Like I said, I just sort of raised an eyebrow at that and was like, I hadn't thought of that. But I do agree that Baylor is a pretty attractive job right now just because of all the things that Stephen just said, including just their commitment to, winning. And, if you do well, they'll pay you and try to keep you around. And, so anyway,
Hey, Brice,
go ahead.
I did want to say that I think Sonny-Dykes is going to take TCU over Tech because he doesn't want to try to top his dad, Spike, in press conferences at Tech. He's probably the funniest coach I've ever been around.
Really?
And, I think that would be impossible to top his one-liners.
Oh yeah, Spike was pretty dadgum good. Although John, I'll throw another name out there. Wasn't Shelby Metcalf pretty good?
Yeah, he kind of meandered a bit. You kind of wondered where he was going, but yeah, he was pretty funny.
Yeah. Of course, we're digging into another sport now, but so finally, Stephen, we have a little tradition here on One True Podcast. We like to close with a little segment we call Culinary Corner, and it's not really that highbrow. But when John and I visit Fort Worth, we're kind of just old stick in the muds. We always go to Kincaid's and get a nice juicy burger. We don't really venture too much out of our comfort zone, I guess, on that. Mm-hmm. But let's just pretend that we were not in the mood for a Kincaid's hamburger. Where should we go in Fort Worth? Either under the radar or, on the radar?
Hey, that's a lot of pretending, Brice.
Yeah, I'm excited for this, and I appreciate Kincaid's is a great choice. So you guys obviously know your food, which is a good thing. I'd say so. Heim Barbecue is really good. They have their original locations in Fort Worth. They also have locations in Dallas now, but they're famous for bacon burnt ends. Like that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go there, Tex-Mex wise, Joe T. Garcia's downtown.
Yeah,
is great.
That's an
Simple
old favorite.
menu. Really, really good. Enchiladas Olay is really, really good as well. And then I'll cheat a little bit because you told me in the description you were like, you don't want a burger, but there's a place going towards 7th Street called the Rodeo Goat, and it's kind of like bar food. So they have more options than burgers, but burgers there are really, really good as well.
Dang,
wow.
He's a great source.
Yes, we got to write these down.
Off.
I'm glad I recorded the podcast because we can go back and reference this later. This is
I'm impressed, man.
This is the need to know information, honestly. This
That's
is
right.
why we do this.
Well, Stephen brought it in that last part.
Yeah, I saw you mentioned Heim Barbecue. I saw, weren't they on that Texas Monthly barbecue list? And that bacon burnt ends, that sounds amazing.
They were, yeah. They've really exploded in the past like 5 or 6 years, and they're a fun place to go. So yeah, they made the Texas Monthly list. I don't know exactly where they were on it, but I know they were there. So that's always a good recommendation or a good referral.
Yeah.
Hey, Brice, we could leave like at 5 a.m. on Saturday and get in line there like at 6:30 and, be ready for when they open.
Yeah. Sleep, food, we're always trying to balance these things. By the way, what we really need to be doing is reaching out to some of these places and saying, look at these nice shout outs we give you. Where's our sponsorship money?
Get that sponsorship.
Yeah.
Some lunches.
Or at least a free burger. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You can't get this kind of publicity just anywhere.
Right. Yes. Good stuff. All right. Well, Stephen, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise. We certainly appreciate it. And, looking forward to, obviously check out hooked on. No, wait, that's locked.
Yeah,
I
locked
started
on
to say
Horned Frogs.
hooked on. That's a horn thing. Locked on frogs. Where can we find that? Wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm at Simcox Steven. I post the show every day, and then anywhere you listen to podcasts, Locked on Horned Frogs, just search it, and you can find it pretty easily.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks,
Thanks, Chad.
Steven.